All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Thanks for stopping by a little early here with me. I decided to start a little earlier tonight because I've been up pretty long here. I just been flying all day from Phoenix for the Toyota RAV4 media drive. So stay tuned. Now I can finally say stay tuned for my driving reviews of both GR Sport, Woodland, and the regular RAV4s, both in hybrid and plug-in hybrid. Stay tuned for all that. I'm going to break it up into 3 videos, but the embargo drops on Wednesday the 22nd here at, I believe, 10 a.m. So I'm going to do, I think, GR Sport and the regular one for the first day, and I'm going to hold off on the Woodland until the next day just so that you're not bombarded with 3 videos. 2 is probably pushing it too, but figured, I want to try and get a good amount of coverage out there on the embargo date. But so anyway, trying to go to bed a little earlier tonight because I'm pretty tired. But anyway, I see we have Kraken, Vishal, Landswath, Luke, Still a Buster, Kevin, and Lantern Tales. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. You guys know the drill. So, anyone who's new here, though, if there happens to be anyone lurking there that's not commenting, you can always partake in the chat here. We do a pretty good job keeping up with the comments, but feel free to become a member there to get that priority answering or do a super chat. And Kraken says, Matt, I'm in Pittsburgh till Sunday. Let me know if you want to meet up for a little. No, we can review Kraken when you have more time. Yeah, well, definitely don't have time for a review. I don't know if I'll have time to meet up either because my days are always jam-packed, during the weekday, and the weekends are usually, reserved for the family. And sometimes I can, do something on the weekend, but Beth's actually got a cold thanks to our daughter who had a cold first and gave it to Beth. And since I've been MIA for the past 3 days here, I think I'm going to be doing some extra dad duty here this weekend and helping take care of Beth while she's sick. So I don't know if I'm going to have time, but I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you need any recommendations or if there's anything else I can do to assist. I don't have any cool press cars even to show you, even if I did have time. I'm actually going to be taking a break from press cars here for about a week, and then I'm getting another rotation going here. But so sorry I can't help you out there, but hope you have a good time, whatever you end up doing here in Pittsburgh. And if I hear loud crackles and pops, I will whip my head around and see if I can spot you. And Vijay says, hey, my spot is a dark green E38 7 Series someone bought in my neighborhood. It's in pristine condition. They're rightfully parking it in the garage out of the elements. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like those are pretty rare. I'm curious what motor that has, because I think the E38, was that the older ones that you could get with either the V12 or the V8, I believe, right? So I'm curious what that one has, but that's awesome. And dark green is a really rare color. I don't know if I've ever actually seen one of those in dark green. So that is quite the combo. Nice spot there. And Lancewath, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity and happy to see, I think mostly new faces, they're able to get the membership. So we'll see if many of them are able to chat with us here tonight. And yeah, thank you so much, Doug and Lancewath. Hope you're doing well. And I see here's the next comment here. He says, good evening. I hope everyone is having a good week so far. My spots are a Desert Sand Ranger Raptor, a silver Cadillac ATS Coupe, and a blue AMG GT 4-door sedan. Very nice spots there. I actually just saw a Ranger Raptor on my way home from the airport today as well. They're really, I don't think I've followed behind one before. They are noticeably like a lot higher than a regular Ranger. It's a Raptor, that's to be expected, but I don't have a lot of experience being around Ranger Raptors, and it's actually got a lot of presence. I actually didn't really see too many interesting spots when I was out in Phoenix here this week. There wasn't really anything I could say that was really notable. But I wasn't doing a whole lot of driving. We were just kind of doing loops back and forth from the hotel we were at. So I wasn't able to venture out a ton, but yeah, I don't think there was really anything too interesting. But Michelle says, the death of sedans continues. Cadillac CT4 and CT5 are gone after 2026, though CT5 will get a new generation with gas engines. Really? I hadn't heard that. That must be recent news, because I thought I've been staying up okay on car news, but I guess I must have missed that. So I thought it was maybe it wasn't confirmed, but I thought there was like leaked plans that did reveal a year or two ago that 2026 was going to be the last year for CT4 and CT5. But There was the leaked electric thing that essentially looks like optic, but in sedan form. So I wonder where that fits in, if they are tabling that or if that's going to launch. And then there's also going to be, because what I had heard, and I think I reported on this in one of the last weekly updates, was that there's going to be two electric sedans. One's going to be more CT5 size, or in between CT4 and CT5, and the other one's going to be between CT5 and the old CT6, and they're going to kind of grow a little bit. But interesting to hear about a gas one. I'm kind of curious what they would even do powertrain wise, because this Cadillac getting rid of everything, on the SUV side as far as gas, pretty much. Unless they keep going with the V8, but for a regular version. I mean, I guess they got the Turbo 4 still in production because it's still in like Equinox and stuff like that. Oh, that's actually the 1.5. So, I can't think of. Maybe they just do the 2.7 from the Silverado that is in the CT4V. Maybe they do that for a motor, because it's their the amount of gas engines they have to pick from, and the GM portfolio is shrinking as well these days. So, or maybe it'll be a new engine. We'll have to see, but. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for the heads up, Vishal. And Luke says, I'm in New Berlin, Wisconsin this evening. I had to take a detour. And when I got 2 miles from my delivery, it was a no truck road. So I had to turn around in a storage facility parking lot. Fun times. Man, that's rough. Well, hopefully everything, worked out, and hopefully you can make the delivery somehow. But it must be kind of interesting, though. You're probably always stopping in new places, or sometimes at least in new places. It must be kind of cool to see all these various corners of the country. Like, I didn't even know there was such a thing as New Berlin, Wisconsin. So probably kind of cool to see the country that way. And hope you're doing well, Luke, otherwise. And still Buster says, hey, all my spots of the week are an R32 GTR, nice, and a Ford 500. I forgot that car existed, but then again, it was only in production from 2005 to 2007. Yeah, and then it went to just being Taurus for a little while there, and then that was kind of the end of it until the actual next generation of the Taurus then came out after that. But actually, I just spotted a 500 in the junkyard last week. That I just posted that video here on Monday. I see those pretty frequently in the junkyard. So I think they're kind of reaching the end of their life for most people that own those things. So impressive. There's still one on the road there. And Kevin says hi, and so does Lantern. Thanks for stopping by, guys. And Maran says, hi, Matt. I did some cool long highway driving today in South Carolina. I want you to remember me as Hellcat Boy. All right, I'll do my best. And I hope you get that Hellcat someday soon here. And the boys is asking thoughts on the Corolla leak. So I'm trying to, there's been two, right? There was the Chinese Corolla, which looks like they basically plastered the BZ front end onto the existing Corolla. And then there was just the new like concept thing, right? That we saw. I guess, I don't know if that's a teaser for the Japan Mobility Show or what. But I saw that thing as well, which looks like, a very much new next generation kind of thing, which is great. I don't know what to think, honestly, because, the Chinese leak one is the more plausible one, because you see, how Camry still shares a lot with the last generation Camry as far as the body structure and everything. And I'm, was very much assuming they do the same thing for Corolla, because it just makes sense. And I like that theory better, because then all the mounting points are the same for the engine and everything, which would basically, green light the GR Corolla to continue as it is. Take a shot, everyone who's taking, who's keeping count at home here. So that was kind of my hope, is I actually was hoping they wouldn't do a whole lot with Corolla so that everything could stay the way it was. I mean, that's not to say that a next generation Corolla that's wildly different wouldn't, be able to do the same GR motor and all that, but might be a little bit more of a waiting period as they adapt it to a new car versus, just a little light facelift. But so I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but both of them seem fine to me. I mean, the really futuristic looking one is pretty sweet, but Corolla, I kind of doubt they would go wild with Corolla. I mean, they have done some bold stuff with Corolla here, but it's such a world car and it's such a huge seller. It's kind of like Camry. You can't really go too crazy, and that's why Camry kept it pretty conservative, because it's a huge seller, and you don't want to rock the boat too much. All car companies, when they know they have a good seller on their hands, they know better than to experiment with crazy styling on that kind of stuff. Typically, this is why even with BMW's crazy styling, the X3 really kind of toned it down a good bit, because again, they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, essentially. So yeah, we'll see how it ends up playing out. I don't know what's going on with Corolla. I don't think there's anything coming this year, unless again it's Japan Mobility Show, but nothing as far as the States, I don't think. So yeah, I don't know. It might still be another year or two even before Corolla comes. We'll have to see. And Lantern Tales says, what is the junkyard video schedule? It's hard to do an exact schedule, so it's not nailed down, but essentially I try to go to a junkyard once every 2 weeks. Some like this, typically it ends up being 3 weeks between videos thereabouts, which is more than I'd like, but just because usually I'm just so buried with editing of everything else on this channel that just taking the time to edit the hour plus long junkyard videos, even though there's really not much editing, it's just laying out the clips and cutting out a few little bit of fluff, sentences that I may say from time to time that don't need to stay in there. But it's typically the goal is to get it to be once every 2 weeks. The problem is, aside from the Pittsburgh yard, there are other yards in Pittsburgh. It's just I don't have those connections. Right now I'm doing it through all the pull apart yards, and aside from the Pittsburgh one, all the other ones are in Ohio. So that's pretty close to a full day just to drive out there, walk around a junkyard for a couple hours, and then drive an hour and a half, 2 hours home. You're stopping for lunch as well, along the way or whatever. So it's a whole day kind of ordeal, and then you also got to do the edit. So I still definitely want to keep investing in that though, because I still do see promise for it. But and also I need to boost the watch time, and I need to boost the subscriber amount so that I can actually get it monetized, so I can start making money off of them. Because I can't just keep lingering with that, just not making money if I'm going to be spending that much time on doing it. So yeah, that's the goal, is get to 1,000 subscribers and you get to 4,000 hours of watch time. So I just need this next video to hopefully maybe do a little bit better for views. We'll see. But I think the current one that I just posted this week has been actually doing a little bit better than the one before it. So hopefully we're seeing some healthy gradual growth here. We'll see. But they're so fun to make, and they're easy to make too. It's just the time component. But let me see here. Still Buster says, also spotted a RAV4 with ducts lined across the dashboard. Is that trend spreading to other vehicles, or does that owner just wish they had a Jeep? No, it's spreading to a lot of other vehicles. I actually see it on a bunch of stuff, and I've noticed that too. It's been really like this year in particular, where I've never seen it on anything other than a Wrangler, maybe a Compass sometimes. But it's usually just been Wranglers, and now I've been seeing that. I think there's been a couple of like Crosstreks, Foresters that have had that. I think a bunch of people just now are like, "Oh, I want to display my toys on my dash," and like that's just a thing now. I mean, it's fun, and obviously it's like any other customization. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters. But yeah, I think it is definitely spreading. And I see the boy says that he's seen ducks lined up on the dashboard out here too. Yeah, I think it's definitely getting more common. And Jay says, hey, Matt, great to see you again. Thanks for stopping by, Jay. He says, recently messaged you on Facebook if you didn't see it yet. Oh, yeah, I check it like once a week. I'm not great about staying up to date on the Facebook. I apologize. I'll check it out here after the live. But he says, hope you and your family are doing well. Best news so far is my firstborn son, Zen, was born on the 8th last week. Oh, that's awesome. Well, congrats. That's huge. And hope you have a great time. Those first few days are so special, and I mean it's a great ride. I was actually on the media drive here. I was talking to Mason from Car Confections, with them expecting their first child, and I was really kind of just giving all my high level dad advice. Take lots of pictures, make sure you really just enjoy it as much as you can, because it does go by so fast. And really try and soak it all up. And that's also part of why I've put so much of my social life on the back burner, and I don't go to car shows unless my daughter wants to go with me. And it's all about, like, these times are so quick, and they're gone before you know it. And so it's just something I've been really just focusing on, and knowing that I'll have all the time to do all my other random various self-serving stuff down the road. But in the meantime, just it's you want to just enjoy it as best as you can. So I hope you enjoy it to the max. And yeah, that's awesome. Congrats again. Um, and Jerry, thanks for stopping by. Lantern Tales says, I wonder how long these modern cars will stay on the road, considering how much they use touchscreens and advanced technology. Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, there's going to be more drop off just because there's things that you can't fix yourself as easily. Now, how much of a drop off I think will come down to how much the technology gets cheaper. If you have a touch screen and a Mach-E that controls everything, for example, and that's $1,000. The first owner maybe would pay that if if they've been with a car since new and they're attached to it or something, and maybe a second owner depending on how deep their pockets are. But once you get to end of life, third, fourth owner kind of things, yeah, what are they going to do? And so I hope that all these screens, I mean, we see how TVs have gotten so much cheaper. I hope that we see these screens really come down in price, and that it's something that maybe there will be, new tools or new software to enable people to do that stuff a little bit more themselves. At the very least, again, I just hope that even if you can't get around the labor and you still got to go to the dealer, hopefully these parts actually get cheap. It'd be really crazy if in 2035 you're still having to pay $1,000 for, a 1080p, 25-inch monitor. Essentially, it's just what some of these screens are like. That should not be super expensive. So I hope that stuff all comes down in price. Same thing with chips. All these things have these Snapdragon processors now, and this, that, and the other. That's going to be ancient in 10 years, and hopefully that means it'll be dirt cheap to replace. But sometimes with car parts, they really do this weird thing where they try and prop up the price, or just mark up the price, even if they are dirt cheap, just because they have that control. So we'll see. I think that's also going to be where the junkyards and stuff like that come into play, and make it very important to be able to salvage those kind of parts, because as long as they're fairly easy to remove, like, that's going to be very important to keep that stuff going. But yeah, it's a good question. Time will tell. Yeah, I mean, there's other screens that have been around for a while. I think, most of the stuff that is old, like, they seem to be lasting a good long while. Every once in a while, once in a blue moon, someone will comment like, oh, I had to replace the screen in my Mustang, or this, that, or the other. The other good thing too is the aftermarket. So even if car companies are going to be totally crappy and they're going to try and charge huge amounts of money for a $50 screen, you can always do aftermarket stuff. And I know, like, a lot of the Mustang people, you have the Sync 3, but if you want to upgrade it, or you're just not going to pay for a new Ford screen, you can pop in, an aftermarket thing and do it that way. So I think that's going to be a nice workaround as well, as long as, again, the software and these aftermarket things is smart enough to still, do the climate controls, do all the OEM functionality that you need. That's going to be the trickier part, especially when you're talking about stuff like Mach-E, where charging schedules are baked in and everything else. But, I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. And Michelle says, Volkswagen GTI and R won 2026 Motor Trend Car of the Year. Interesting. Nice to see a Volkswagen getting that recognition. They did a nice job on the Mark 8.5. Yeah, I mean, I said they really improved it as well in my review. The R, I still don't love the R. I know it's objectively very good, but that's interesting. It was Car of the Year though, because it's just a refresh. Like, I mean, it's a good refresh, but I don't know if I agree with that. I oftentimes don't agree with Motor Trend's Cars of the Year, especially, man, when they crowned Blazer the utility of the year for Blazer EV, and it was the early days when it was still very glitchy. And if you read their write-up for Car of the Year, man, their credibility just went out the window to me. Like, it was so obviously a paid piece. Like, it just, I don't know how it was convincing. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks that too. And I talked to some colleagues, and everyone's just like, man, yeah, like what happened to Motor Trend? Like just taking the GM money and running, I guess. But so I don't know if I put a lot of stock in their crowning. I mean, they do some good reviews still, but I think GTI. It's great to see them, supporting it. I agree with you, because it's an endangered species with those hot hatches. So I'm glad they're getting some recognition there. You know, I think I don't know if it's car of the year, but I'm I'm glad whether Volkswagen just ponied up the money to get the crown, or if Motortrend truly actually thinks that is the best thing that came out this year. But either way, that's interesting. Thanks for the heads up on that too, Michelle. Chadwick says, "Hi Matt, I was shocked by your response to the TRD Pro 4Runner the other day. My fiance just got one and loves it." Yeah, I love the TRD Pro 4Runner, and like I said at the end of the video, like if I needed off-road capability, like that would probably be, if I could afford it, that would be absolutely the way to go, because it's so much fun. And I love 4Runners now, and I've never said that before this generation. So I'm glad your fiance got one, and I'm glad she's enjoying it. That's awesome. It's a really sweet car. And as Zachary says, I've got to admit it, the new RAV4 makes me mad. I showed it to my wife, who knows cars well, and she couldn't even name the brand. So many cars right now are just samey angular boxes. Interesting. Yeah, that styling is always subjective, so I, obviously can't fault you for that. I think, though, honestly, like some people thought it needed to be bolder with the back end, because the back end is very reminiscent of the 4th generation RAV4. And some people even just thought it was lazy for the styling, because it's like, instead of doing something truly new, it like looks a lot like that, especially the taillights and that whole shape. But yeah, I think also it's harder to establish a visual identity whenever you have such diverse styling across because you're looking at 4 different bumper styles attached to the same vehicle. And aside from the headlights, it is very drastic changes, between, especially the Woodland. It's, really blocky and, very flat nosed. And then you have the GR Sport, which is, very angular and sporty. So, yeah, and I can understand. I certainly understand. I mean, the only thing I will say to, kind of balance that out is, there's some others that are doing actually bad styling, and like Forester, I was like, man, honestly, I think the Wilderness version looks a little bit better, but regular Forester with those like browny, goldish, bronzish kind of just, they just look like they're brown wheels, like wagon wheels on the Forester Sport. I mean, if you watched that review last year, you heard me rant about it plenty. But like if the choices are samey, but unoffensive or actually visually repulsive, like I'll take the blander approach. Honestly, I really like. I mean, maybe it's something you'll see in person to appreciate, but like there's a lot of like black, not really cladding even. It's just like, the one lower part of the door there has a lot of gloss black finish to it, and it nicely offsets the color of the vehicle, especially if it's a really bright color like the Supersonic Red on the GR Sport. Having the black is kind of a nice offset, in my opinion. So yeah, again, I'm under embargo, so I won't say any more about RAV4 as far as pros and cons for now. But stay tuned for all of that next week. But I think the styling is fair game to discuss, because, again, that's been out since April or whatever. Yeah, we'll see, if other companies rock the boat a little bit more with styling or try and do something a little more classy. I think the new Mazda CX-5 looks pretty nice. And Mazda typically does some good stuff. So there's other options, but I think Toyota, they also, like we were saying earlier, it's the same thing of they sell almost 500,000 of these things. Like you don't really want to change it a whole lot. Honestly, I was joking with the Toyota executives this week. I was like, I'm surprised you guys didn't just pull a 4Runner and just like keep this thing going for, the full 10 years or whatever, because it sells so well. And they're saying that even now with, at least people that are in the know, knowing that there's a new RAV4, very, very close behind. They're still turning current RAV4s super quick. They haven't even stopped production yet. They're still churning out the old ones because there's demand there, and they're trying to, again, very quickly turn over the factory to, whenever they need to build the new ones. But like, they're like, the old one's selling great. Like, we really didn't need to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just surprised they did. But, they said they want to make sure that they're not, they're staying ahead of the competition and retaining that crown. And that involves, being at the top of your game, whether it's, the infotainment or specs or whatever, So, but yeah, they got a good thing going. And we'll see if they crack 500,000 sales. Probably won't this year, because I'm sure there's going to be a slowdown as they do switch over. But next year, we'll see. We'll see how people react to, it being all hybrid and whether that eats into sales or not. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And Oreo DC Cat says, "Good evening, Matt. What do you think about the new Subaru STI concept car teasers?" Man, I must be missing all this stuff. I haven't seen that either. So I'm sorry, I can't give you any thoughts on that. Is it, man, now I'm curious. There was the one time I tried to do a screen share on here and look something up, but then it ended up like crashing the stream. So I'm like hesitant to try that again. But I will look into that, and then we can talk about it on Sunday. How about that? But now I'm excited. Well, I shouldn't be excited. It's Subaru. They always crush me when I get my hopes up. But hopefully there's actually something promising there. But I'm curious how they play that, whether they're going to stick to the original plan of making it electric in 2028, not holding my breath for that, or if they're just going to finally bring over, the stuff they have in Japan, which would be a CVT only STI, which is what they have over there for the S210. So we'll see. But thanks for the heads up on that. I will check it out. And Lancelot says, "I forgot I saw a red Ranger Raptor last week that had a modified grille. The grille's letters had white LEDs in them. That's cool." And Steve says, "What's your under $100,000 dream car?" If we're talking new, I'd say Lexus LC500. If we're talking used stuff, probably Aston Martin Vantage, because I don't think I can get a GTC4 Lusso for under 100. Probably not even an FF, which would be the other dream kind of car that does everything. So yeah, I'd probably say Aston Martin Vantage. I mean, I haven't looked super recently. If I could swing a DB11 or the last generation Vanquish, I know DBSs aren't going for that cheap for the last gen DBS, but the old Vanquish, like 2014 to 2018, I think, those are probably still over 100 grand. So yeah, just probably be Vantage. I think it's probably the safe bet there. So yeah. Maybe someday. It's fun to dream. And Luke says, "It was annoying because it was the same road as my delivery, but through that part of town, no trucks. So I had to go like 6 miles out of the way to make it to the place. That sucks." I'm sure, again, lots of tight maneuvering too, which is probably the worst part, I'm assuming. And Michelle says, "The old footage you showed in the junkyard video of the silver Malibu Max was so cool. Unlocked a core memory. We went to Disney in 05, 06, and our rental was a silver Malibu sedan." Wow, that's cool. Yeah, so you must have, yeah, if you were there, I was there in 06. So if you were there in 06, we may have very well crossed paths and not even known. That's awesome. Yeah, that was fun to, because I had those clips, thankfully, like nice and easy to access. So it wasn't a big extra task to put that into the junkyard thing. And the little Easter egg there of probably 4 or 5-year-old Matt on my little tricycle in front of our 1988 Ford Tempo was kind of fun to include in there as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I believe that was close to the end. So that's why I said, in the last live, watch past the hour mark if you want to see fun little Easter eggs there and some of the other cool stuff that I found. But thanks for watching the video and watching it that far in as well, Vishal. I really appreciate it. And I see everyone's saying cheers to the GR Corolla mention there. And Lantern Tail says, my friend has a base Mitsubishi Endeavor LS. It was a former rental car. The Endeavor is basically an SUV version of the Galant. Yeah, so I actually spotted an Endeavor in my previous junkyard walk, and I had like completely forgotten about the Endeavor. But yeah, there's still a few of them hanging on, but man, I haven't seen one of those on the road in a long time, at least here in Pittsburgh. So it's cool your friend has one. Hopefully it's treating them well. I'm curious, the mileage they're up to and how it's been for them, but hopefully it's been okay. And Luke says, my top 5 favorite states are North Dakota, Wisconsin, Maine, New Hampshire, and North Carolina. Nice. Yeah, that's a cool lineup. I mean, I'd love to go. I was briefly in Maine at one point, but yeah, like Vermont and all that. I love being up there. It's so beautiful. And New Hampshire, all that is, yeah, great. Never actually been to Wisconsin or North Dakota. So still have some of those upper states that I've missed out on. And car companies always like going to the same spots. I really wish they'd have more diversity and like do stuff that's out of the ordinary. Which actually, so speaking of this, I'm not going to say where or when it is, but I have been invited to drive the 6-pack Dodge Charger with the, Hurricane motor. And I'm going to do a poll. I'm pretty certain that really no one actually is excited about that car. And so I want to see if you guys would actually want to see me review it. I'm probably not going to, at least not as far as a trip, maybe if it's offered as a press car, but be completely brutally honest. I don't care if it's 100% no or 100% yes. If you guys actually truly want to see it, I will do it. But, I look back today at the comments on the 6-pack whenever I did the little news video, whenever, all the info came out about it. And it's like mostly negative comments. And I mean, maybe that'll get some views because it's just kind of like, the engagement of everyone raging about it. But, if it's a car people aren't actually excited about, then I don't want to waste my time going. I see Raphael says he'd watch it, but okay, let me just do a formal poll here and we'll let everyone vote. It is also kind of a cool opportunity as far as it is a little bit of a different place. But I'll elaborate more on that whenever I can. But I'm curious. We have 36 of you in here, so I'm going to be a very, very tiny sliver of of public sentiment here. But I'm curious, just even with you guys, how many. So we'll let that run for a few minutes here. And getting into the other questions here. So Michelle says, how's the new junkyard video performing being posted on a Monday compared to Saturday? Seems to be a little bit better. It's so hard to say right now because the channel is so new as far as what viewer preferences are. I had assumed a weekend, like a Saturday morning thing would be great because you might have a little bit more time to burn, and it's something that's, to me, just feels like a nice, like, sit back and hang on a Saturday morning and be lazy and watch me, walk around a junkyard. That was kind of just my idea of where it would fit in, possibly because of the length and all that. But it so far doesn't seem like it's really, doing too differently. I'm gonna have to give it more time for the data to come in to really say, but because it also could just be this one's performing better because the cars in the thumbnail are more interesting, or the algorithm is just pushing it more. It's really hard to like really focus on viewer preferences for that kind of stuff because it really, I was even just listening to Matt Farah's podcast, Smoking Tower podcast, where he was talking with the Motorman about, how there are, you real viewers who watch this stuff and enjoy it and engage with it. But it is still like we're basically making videos for an algorithm, and hopefully a few of you actually watch it too. Obviously, the algorithm is sending it to real people, but trying to nail down like, what you guys actually like. I mean, even again, now we have 43 people in here, but 43 views. Like, if I nail exactly what you guys want, that's great. But I mean, that is a microscopic amount of everything and trying to look at the data and say, okay, well, this is when people are most likely to be online. I've tried to optimize the reviews in that way, and it doesn't work. It really comes down to, is the car cool? Is it something you want to see? And that's obviously going to be the most important thing. And YouTube says this as well. They say it doesn't matter really when you post. And this is why, sometimes we have these goofy embargo times and we got to post a video at 6 a.m. or something. And it's like, this is the absolute worst time to post it. But, over the life of the video, you're talking months, years, doesn't matter. It'll eventually find the viewers that it needs to find, hopefully. And so I try not to obsess over that too much. I used to, but it just doesn't seem like it really pays off, honestly. And El Naranjero, hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. Thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, have you noticed that Toyota dealerships are renaming GT86 as a GR86 and charging nearly over 20 grand? I feel like it's false advertising, especially when FRS and Gen 1 B or Z are like 15 for a decent one. So you're saying that dealers are taking first gen GT86s and putting GR86 badges on and then charging more? I feel like that wouldn't make sense though, because I'm trying to figure out if you want to send a follow-up, you don't have to do any super chats, but just you want to send a follow-up because I haven't seen anything like that, and that doesn't seem, because you just run the VIN and it's obviously going to say the actual name of the car. And even like the automated systems that those dealers use, they just punch in the VIN and it auto-populates everything for the listing. So there's not really any flexibility for them to just like pretend it's got a different name or something. But yeah, Vishal says he thinks they're naming GT86 as GR86 in the listings and charging more for it. Maybe I have not seen that, but again, I don't know who they'd be fooling unless you're someone who doesn't know the cars at all. I guess maybe there's a few people that have lived under a rock for the past 15 years and don't know the difference between a GT86 and a GR86 that maybe go for that. You can't change the name of a car. So like, when you're doing the paperwork and you're in the finance department, you're signing the papers are going to say GT86. Like there's, you can call it whatever you want, even in a listing, but I don't, again, because I know all these dealers use auto-populated listings, and you have to call it what it actually is. It says if you go to Car Gurus, they list them as GR86 and charge near GR86 cars. If they are taking advantage of people, it's almost to the point where, like, if you are that out of the loop and you've done zero research that you think a GT86 and a GR86 are the same thing and you're willing to pay 20 grand more. Even you look at a brand new GR86 though, you can get one for 30 grand, and a GT86 is going to probably be like 20, maybe 15 if it's really rough. So there's no way they're charging $35,000 for a 15-year-old GT86 or anything. So, or I guess 10-year-old. But so I have to do more research. It sounds more like it'd be a glitch or something. Because again, that wouldn't hold up. Again, the second you do any of the paperwork, it's going to say the different car. And again, if someone's buying one of those and they don't know they're not buying a GR86, I have a limited amount of sympathy for someone like that, because again, this is why research is important. But especially a sports car, if we're talking about a Camry or something like that, I could see maybe. But when you're buying a sports car, it's an emotional purchase. You do your research. Typically, you're not just going into it super blindly. Typically, I think. So I don't think that actually is a viable business thing. I'd be more inclined to think it's just some kind of glitch or mistake or mix up, unless there's frequent, like, multiple listings like that. But even then, it could just be like an error with the listing or something. Also, if it's Car Gurus, they might just be miscategorizing, because sometimes if a car changes names, sometimes like even Auto Trader's not great about doing the new name, or they get confused, and it's kind of weird with how they group stuff. So yeah, I don't know. have to check out car gurus and see, but I'm inclined to think it's probably just a glitch. Because yeah, I don't I can't wrap my head around the idea that people are that out of the loop if they're buying a GR86 or a GT86 and in that. I see Sean, thank you for being a member for 39 months now. He says, people don't pay attention. I'll join a Facebook page for a car. People will post pics. I just bought this. Does anybody know what engine is in it? Wow, that's crazy. I mean, so and this is a car page like that supposedly has enthusiasts in it and they don't know what engine is in their car. Yeah, I don't know. If we're talking about the people that look at a car as a appliance that's the same as a washing machine, they don't know what their car is even called. Those people, yeah, but I just don't think those people are sports car buyers. If you're a sports car buyer and you don't know what your car is actually called or the kind of engine that's in it, I really don't think that kind of person can be saved from being taken advantage of. If that's how gullible someone is, I'm sure that's not going to be the only scam in their life. I mean, not that it's okay, but like, you really should know better. I think is the consensus that I would say, like, just a Google search or anything. I mean, even do a reverse image search, take a picture of the car if you're not sure what it is, and it'll tell you the right name. So yeah, and anyone who also, if they're actually putting 20 grand extra on them, if people are walking up to a 10-year-old GR86 or GT86 and saying, yeah, that's worth 35 grand, then again, that person's got bigger problems in their life. I guarantee it. If that passes for a $35,000 car, again, it's kind of, to me, almost a lost cause there. if you're not going to do any research, you're just going to get taken advantage of, and again, that's going to be a very common occurrence in someone's life like that. If that's their savviness when it comes to buying stuff. That's crazy. And Sean also follow up here says, I saw it's a lot when I had my Kia Soul and joined a page for that. And with my Scion TC, people will ask if they have a 4 or 6 cylinder. They only came with the 4s. Right. Interesting. I mean, the Soul buyer, I can kind of see. Yeah, read the window sticker. Well, that's another thing. Yeah. I mean, you have the OEMs have it on the window sticker. I guess dealers could take the window sticker down, but you're supposed to leave the window sticker up really until a car is sold. So, yeah. So, I mean, you're right. That's another like real, like if you cannot read your window sticker on the window, yeah, I have no sympathy for someone paying 35 grand for a 10-year-old GT86 if that's the way they go about their life. But Chad says, I've got a plot of high land under a bridge for that buyer. Seriously, don't do that to people. Right. But again, this is why we have all the scams we have in the world, because there are people that, despite all the warnings about, hey, this, is a scam or whatever, like there's still people who genuinely think, they want a free iPhone and they just need to click here to, claim it or whatever. I mean, yeah, if scams didn't work, they wouldn't continue to exist. They exist because they are worth doing from a money standpoint, and it pays off. It's not great, but this is why we need to have people be more vigilant and do research and check things out and Google things and stuff. And I deal with this even with my own parents, but like, look, you gotta Google this, you gotta like check this stuff out. You can't just it's just, oh, I don't know if any of you can relate, but sometimes it's tough with the older generations. Anyway, Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, aluminum is abundant and an excellent conductor of electricity. Why doesn't that element replace copper? Wouldn't it be cheaper for EV production? I'm sure there's probably a good reason why they haven't. I don't know if it's a heat issue. Maybe it's a thermal thing of, aluminum maybe not having the durability long term of copper, or something like that. I mean, because obviously there's very smart people trying to figure out how they can get the cost of EVs down, and they're making progress. But I have to assume that every metal possible was evaluated to do these components, because copper is obviously a little bit more pricey. But I'm assuming everyone just kind of has agreed that copper is the best right now. That could change in the future, depending on, again, other technology breakthroughs and stuff. But that's one of those things where typically, there's no way, and these brilliant people that do this stuff someone wouldn't have figured that out if aluminum is better. So there's got to be a good reason. I just don't know the reason for that. But great question. Thanks so much for the super chat there, Jordan. And let me see, getting back to the other member questions here. Tuned Up says, I picked up a 2024 F-Type 75 Coupe. Congrats. That's awesome. Loving the car and the V8. Can't help thinking there's a bunch of unlocked power. My car is the detuned P450. You've driven the R and the 450 Tune It. Yeah, I did an R Coupe, and I did the R convertible just earlier this year, but I'm trying to think. I don't think I did the newest like detuned V8 because I haven't done the facelifted F-types yet. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously a bunch of power there. I'm not sure if there's any mechanical changes or if they just turn down the boost on the supercharger or what. Because yeah, you would think it's very easy, probably, I'm pretty sure it's all the same stuff. So why couldn't you? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's, again, something else holding it back. Maybe cooling is less. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe they, nix some of the cooling you get on the Rs, and the higher performing ones. I know SVR has, I think, more coolers. So maybe it's that. I don't know. But I mean, that'd be a great question for like a F-type subreddit or forum or something like that. I'm sure that there's people that have looked into that. Now, I do know there's tunes. I've seen tuned F-types as well in the past. So I know that is a thing, and that certainly can. There's actually someone, I think, who they messaged me that they got, I don't know, what it is, 700 or 800 horsepower in an F-type, which sounds just ridiculous in a good way. So that is a thing. So definitely, do some research if you haven't yet on that. But yeah, usually for vehicle specific stuff like that, where it's really, nitty gritty questions like that, typically you're going to be better off asking other owners, other people in that community, who can give you all the down low on that. But congrats on getting an F-type. That's got to be an awesome accomplishment and achievement. And I hope you enjoy it to the max. That's going to be so fun. And Brian says, regarding your first gen TSX video, I ended up with a 2004 Mazda 6 V6, but the TSX was on my radar at the time. Nice. Yeah. I think, there's a lot of people that did go for the Mazda though, because I know even in the one, I think it was Car and Driver did a comparison test back in 2004. And I think they did another one in like 06. And they had also the Mazda 6 with the V6, and even the one comparison, they actually put in a Mazda Speed 6. But yeah, I mean, Mazda 6 was very much, trying to be a little bit more, upmarket even back then, and was trying to kind of compete with stuff like the TSX there. I've never driven that generation of Mazda 6, so I can't weigh in personally on how it compares to TSX in my opinion, but I'm sure you probably test drove them back to back there. But yeah, TSX is great. I'm glad that video's been doing fairly well, as far as views these days goes. So I'm happy that you guys really seem like you enjoy it. It seems like the view duration is higher on that, which means it's holding everyone's attention a little bit more, even though it's a shorter video. I'm glad that you guys have enjoyed that, and I'm going to be trying to do more of those older used things. It's just, it's really hard to find, even like that TSX. It wasn't a pristine example, but I'm like, I've been always wanting to review one of these older TSXs. I got to just go for it, even though it's not the manual and it's, a little rough around the edges. But I'm happy I still ended up, going for it. Because again, that's a under $8,000 car. And I have a passion for, I truly believe you can always have a fun car no matter what your budget is. There's always something in every budget level to have fun. You don't have to cave and just drive something boring. You can always have fun. And so appreciate the emojis there and the hearts, everyone. But so, that's kind of me, committing to that and saying, look, like everyone else wants to do $100,000 Escalades. I'll do some of that too, but I want to focus on the cheap stuff and, give people with an $8,000 budget, something to watch as well. So thanks so much for the love, everyone. And Chad says, "Hey Matt, I was watching some of the new IHS videos, and the Lightning and the Cybertruck both had low scores for rear seat passengers with a head-on collision." Um, yeah, I saw that they had discussed that. I didn't watch the video yet. It's in my watch later playlist. I think the problem with F-150 is it just doesn't have the pretensioners and load limiters in the back there. Which is what you need to have better crash performance. I thought Cybertruck did. There could just be some other design flaw with Cybertruck that's making it perform badly. I hadn't looked into that, but I'll have to check it out. I do have that video in my saved there, so I'm gonna have to watch it and see. But yeah, that's and that's the one misnomer that a lot of people just assume that a large vehicle is going to be safer. And if you're, doing a physics, experiment where you are running, one car into another car, if you are on the winning end of that, physics game with having more weight, then it can help. But still, especially like the real bad thing is like when a lot of these EVs or trucks or anything like that, where they're typically very good against other vehicles, but whenever they go into a wall or a tree or something like that, that's where they really fall apart, because then the weight works against them, and then they don't have the upper hand, and they're not pushing something out of the way, they're stopping in their tracks, and that's when you can really get into trouble with these tanks of a vehicle, really. But yeah, I'll have to watch that video because it sounds interesting. And Jay says, "Yeah, I hear you. 25-year-old dad here, looking to enjoy time with him to the max. Hopefully he'll be a Subi / gearhead as well. Can't wait for his first ride in the STI. Still a bit too loud for now." Right? Yeah, definitely can agree with that. Yeah, I know. My daughter actually never rode in the Bullet. She sat in it a bunch and stuff, but she was a little apprehensive about the sound. Even I said, I could put it in quiet mode, but it was just a kind of a pain to put the car seat back there, especially back then. She had a bigger car seat, and just something that she didn't really have a huge interest in, so we kind of just left it. But yeah, hopefully your son's able to get used to the exhaust notes there, and it doesn't bother him too much eventually. Ben says Motor Trend sucks now. Again, I think they still do some good stuff, and there are some good writers still there. But when you're talking about a giant corporation like that, there's concessions, I guess, that they make and stuff. And yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I personally, I don't put any weight in their crowns of whatever thing of the year. And Chad says, "For your junkyard walks, have you considered looking at the parts that are used across manufacturers, like a brake or breaker light or switches?" Not really. I don't really get too close to, really analyze too much on them. I have considered, actually pulling a few parts if I do see something that I think is worth it. And like even like owner's manuals, sometimes I'll come across an owner's manual. Typically, again, I'm not the first person to most of these cars in the yard, and I'm sure they get picked through with all the easy money parts pretty quick. But there have been a few times where, I see, oh, look, there's an owner's manual, and I just Google or just pull it up on eBay and see if it's going for any kind of decent money. But a lot of times, again, stuff that I thought would maybe even be rare or whatever, it just doesn't seem like it gets too much money. But, there are some of these really savvy people that are on these lots whenever I'm filming that, they're taking their wheelbarrow around and they're loading it up with all the little, sometimes random wiring harnesses and just things that like, they're really smart with knowing, okay, this is the good part I got to grab, I can discard this other part of it. I just need this one little thing or whatever, because that's the big money thing that sells well or whatever. As there's people, that's their whole kind of job, is they just go and, pick the stuff that they want to pick, and they have an eBay store or whatever. And so I'd like to get better at identifying parts like that, just because if it's something I can, slip in my back pocket and, pay a couple of bucks, on the way out of the pull apart yard for, and then go around and sell it for 20 or 30 bucks on eBay, would certainly help with the profitability of the videos while they're still not making any money. So, but I just need to, start becoming a little more knowledgeable about that. And Michelle says, "The rear end of the new RAV4 screams current gen Rogue 2. Yeah, there is some of that too. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, I'm kind of curious how they arrived at that design. They didn't really elaborate again, I won't spoil the video, but yeah, they didn't like really tell us why they did what they did with the styling. They kind of walked through the perks of it and all that. But yeah, you'll hear all my thoughts here next week on it. But yeah, I'll bite my tongue for now. And Lantern Tail says my parents have a rented Chevy Uplander, or they had one when I was a kid. I got a lot of flashbacks when I saw it in the junkyard. Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's kind of one of the powerful things I think of the junkyard videos is, just the nostalgia again of just relics that we don't see very much anymore. And that's why I'm still convinced that channel has, some promise, because especially with everyone being burned out with, new cars and, them being the same or looking similar, or just not having the powertrain you want or whatever the case is, going and seeing all these old cars and the interesting mods. And I don't know, to me, it's just really fascinating. I'm glad, some of you also enjoy them. And I hope that I, continue to cultivate a community of people that can enjoy that stuff. Because, if nothing else, yeah, just looking back at stuff from the past, 20 or 30 years, just kind of fun. So I'm glad you enjoy it, Lantern. And Raphael says he finally remembered a Wednesday. Well, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you coming here for the Wednesday live. And let me see. Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, as a fan, if we, Jordan, Chad, want to send you a gift, a convo via email, yeah, so you more than happy to send anything you want through email. All my contact info is in the description below. I don't have a PO box or anything like that. I know back in the day that was more of a thing, I think, than it is these days, but I don't have anything like that to send any physical gifts to. But if it's something digital, absolutely send it over in an email. Be more than happy to check it out. And thanks so much for offering. That's great, and I really appreciate it. And let me see here. Actually, you know what? While I'm resuming the other questions here, I'll pull up the poll here. So 81% of you say you would like to see the Charger 6-pack. Okay, this now has me reconsidering. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to go. Maybe I will. There's other complicating factors that are making it a little hard for me to decide as well, beyond just viewer interest. But thank you all for weighing in. That's very insightful, because I honestly didn't even think it would be that many that would be interested in it. So, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to noodle on that somewhere. But thank you so much, everyone, for voting. And we'll end that poll here. But yeah, the final thing I'll say about Charger 6-pack, I just assumed, and I maybe wrongly, that everyone who wants a gas charger is pretty certain a V8's going to come at some point. And I just assumed no one's actually going to buy the 6-pack, because everyone now is going to just say, well, I'm going to wait for the V8. And it's too expensive to, excite the base Charger buyers that might be out there, that are the people driving around the Pentastar Challengers right now. I don't think they got 45,000 or whatever to spend on, even a base gas charger. Maybe there's some, I don't know, man. Now I'm kind of leaning like maybe I should go. Well, thank you all again. Give me a lot to think about here. Get a drink here while we find our place. And we are almost out of time, so maybe I will go to just member questions here, so we're not going super over time here, because I know I have fallen behind with all the other discussion here. So yeah, just to keep these short, I will just do members here for the rest of the live. But again, we'll have Sunday with a 2-hour stream. But let me see here. So Chad says, I saw an older man while driving home from work, driving a wide body Scat Pack in blue. I think it's called B5 blue. All I could think was, wow, living your best life. Nice. Yeah. The Scat Packs are a ton of fun. And TFI says, Matt, what grinds my gears? Non-standard key fob battery sizes. It should be standardized or make it a 9-volt so I never have to change it. Mom's Tiguan takes the CR 2032. My Golf is a CR 2016. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure why they do different. You'd think, yeah, like why not just like all agree on one and stick with it? But I guess there's reasons why they do different ones. I'm not sure. It's a good question. I never really never really paid attention, but yeah, at least it's something you don't have to do too often, hopefully. And I think it's usually what, every like 3 years or so. But yeah, with these key fobs being giant, you might as well just jam pack it with a giant battery, like you said. I'm just glad they still use disposable batteries though, because like that dumb Polestar 3 key fob dongle thing that has no buttons, you have to put it on the wireless charging pad every like week or two, or else it dies because it's got a tiny battery. And I'm like, who thought that was a good idea? Like you always have to charge your key fob every week for it to work. Like horrible design. So I'll gladly, hunt down the right, little battery to replace every 3 years. To me, that's far better than what Polestar is doing, at least. I don't know who made that decision, talking about really bizarre decision making. Anyway, Kraken says, I mean, I could use a couple food spots as well as some potential not horribly busy photo spots. And yes, I have updates on that. Okay. He said, I fixed my horrible rattle. It was the plate that my OEM valve sat on rattling away, or valve stem maybe that was rattling away. Plus I lost the nut at the downpipe, so I fixed that. I have my crazy gun backfires back. So happy. Me and the North Club PA are out End Club PA are out for Grid Life at Pit Race before they close down at the end of the year. Car Corral on Sunday as well. Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. So Grid Life is happening. That'll be, yeah, I wish I had the time to go out there because it'd be nice to go to Pit Race one last time before they tear it down. Because I haven't been out there in a couple of years. Actually, probably haven't been out there since before COVID, honestly. Yeah, it's been a long time. But I used to be at Pit Race quite a bit. Back in the day, I rode passenger and drift cars and yeah, all kinds of fun times at Pit Race. So it's a shame. But I'm glad you're going. I hope you enjoy it. And I'm curious to hear, what it was like whenever you get back. But as far as food spots and photo spots, send me a message or an email and I'll have a more thought out list I can give you then of some good stuff. Because yeah, plenty of photo spots around here. Obviously lots of good food too, depending on what you like. So let me know kind of what your preferences are for food and pictures, and I can kind of give you my best recommendation there. And Chad says, I've seen a few creators going crazy for a used Fiesta ST going for 10 grand. Do you think it's a good buy with reliability? I mean, it seems like there's been a lot of people with pretty high mileage Fiesta STs that even tuned are like, okay, over 100,000 miles. Now, I don't know if that's all of them or not. I don't follow it closely enough to say with any authority, but I didn't know they got down to 10 grand. If it's 10 grand, that's a lot of car for 10 grand. If it has been maintained well, if it's got regular oil changes on the Carfax or good maintenance records, yeah, I totally rock a Fiesta ST for 10 grand. That's another car I want to revisit. If I can come across one to review, I will absolutely highlight that because that's a fantastic performance bargain. I didn't know they were that cheap. Last I checked, they were under 15, which is still fantastic, but I did not know they've now dropped to 10. That's crazy because that will be a collectible car too, especially the nice ones. I'm sure the clapped out ones, are just going to go to the crusher, but nicely preserved Fiesta STs, I envision those being big money someday because they are just so legendary. And, we got it for such a narrow window here in the States. All that stuff, all the hot hatches from Ford that we finally got in the States after decades of begging for them. They finally came and then they went, but yeah, that's cool. And let me see. Lantern Tail says the Endeavor has over 200,000 miles. Just needed a new radiator. He got it in 2007 and has had it for the past 17 years. That's impressive. That's awesome. And Sean says, I was born in New Hampshire. I still don't say my R sometimes. Nice. I need to get up to New England, that whole area again soon. It's been far too long. And let me see. And Michelle also was joining in with Raphael there that he'd watched the Charger review as well. Okay. And Lantern Tail says the Endeavor competed against the first gen Highlander and other mid-sized SUVs. Didn't sell well and only lasted from 2004 to 2011. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's a pretty decent run, So but yeah, it's a shame they didn't keep up with that stuff, because I think again that larger, boxier stuff would sell really well these days if Mitsubishi bothered to put the money in to make a new one. And Lancelot says he'd watch the Charger as well. Okay, well I appreciate that, Chad. I really appreciate your support. And also Chad Yeager says, have you ever been to the Chrysler Reveal dome? I don't know what it's actually called, but I saw another creator seeing the new Wagoneer. I couldn't help notice the dome lights are in a weird arrangement. I don't think I've been in the Chrysler design dome. I've been in another like top secret Chrysler location. That's where I filmed the Charger Daytona whenever that was, like the first hands-on thing with that, a year and a half ago. But I haven't been in their design dome. I've been in the GM design dome, which is very cool because that one has a ton of history. Like that's where like Harley Earl and all those guys were like developing and designing like the crazy fins of the 50s. Being in that design dome was really cool. That's where I filmed the Cadillac Celestiq hands-on video that I did, which was really cool because because again, I know we're over time, so I won't elaborate, but that was a very cool experience to be. GM actually told me, because I was the first one scheduled to film that car that day. They're like, you're the first person outside of GM who has seen this car. And so that was really sweet. Then seeing it in the design dome was quite the privilege. Just being on that campus it's very, very cool just to think of all the history that has been created there. But yeah, I'd love to go to the Chrysler one someday too. And Zachary says, I'd love to watch that 6-pack Charger. I'm curious to see how it performs with that low-key good motor. Yeah, I mean, the motor is great. I mean, I think it's a good combo. Again, it seemed like a lot of people were not excited about it, but I'm happy to see that you guys are open to at least watching a video on it. That's great. So yeah, I see. See, Jordan says he's reminding everyone to like the lives. Absolutely. That always helps. Commenting always helps. All the usual stuff always helps, as does watching it, as long as you possibly can, because that's the other thing. View duration is king on YouTube. Beyond even likes, subscribes, all that stuff, like view duration. The longer a video gets watched, that's the golden ticket. So that's why the channels that perform the best are the ones who have the highest view duration, and people stick around and watch the whole video or a large chunk of it. The algorithm immediately kills a video if a low percentage of the video is watched on average. It's just like, all right, this is not holding people's attention. It sucks. Kill it. So yeah, that's really the bottom line is, even if you even if you mute something or you get tired of hearing me ramble, any kind of longer view duration is the best way to help the channel. And let me see. Vishal says, okay, never mind. That was from the earlier discussion. Zachary's asking, hey, Matt, what are some car brands, in your opinion, that turned their build quality and reliability around in the past 10 years? Unpopular opinion, but I think Nissan is really in the midst of that. And I think that a lot of their stuff has greatly improved in the past 10 years, even, especially the past 5. Now, there's still some low points, but I think, the Jatco CVTs are gone. We have a new CVT design, so that should all be in the past. The interiors are super nice in all these modern Nissans, and the reliability has gotten better. And so I think Nissan, again, most people probably wouldn't agree with that. Everyone still seems to just think Nissan's complete garbage, but I really think that they are better than people give them credit for most of the time. Again, I still don't think they're on the same level as Honda or Toyota for reliability, but honestly, I think they're probably about as good as Subaru, even though Subaru is rated so highly. I hear more basket case stuff with Subaru these days than I honestly hear about a lot of the Nissans. So I think Nissan deserves a little bit more love, but otherwise, other brands, I mean, I think also just the Koreans, the Hyundais and the Kias, I mean, they were also pretty good 10 years ago as well, in my opinion, but I think that they, are just world class, just top-notch vehicles. Same goes for Genesis. I mean, all of those, they still have some reliability things from time to time. And again, some of that comes down to if they're neglected or not. But I think, again, they've made some big strides to improving stuff as well. Again, probably another unpopular opinion, but I think those are, to me, the ones that stand out as being some of the best as far as reliability and build quality. So yeah. And let me see. Yeah, Jay agrees about Hyundai there. And TFI says, be right back, rebadging a Mirage as a GR86 and marking it up 20 grand. Right. And let me see here. So Hamburger is asking if I was at the Cars and Bids meetup. Definitely not. Not gonna be supporting Cars and Bids, considering the stuff that I don't like about Doug. But let me see. Chad says I saw a guy saying he got a Taurus show for super low because they mislisted it as a standard front wheel drive. That's crazy. I'd have to like fact check those kinds of stories unless it's someone you actually know. Because I mean, maybe it's a really dumb dealer. That's certainly in the realm of possibility. But like again, like they all run this stuff through. They just all through the VIN. So I mean, the VIN's gonna always tell and correct that kind of stuff before you ever get to the point usually of sale. But I don't know. I mean, maybe that's crazy. And let me see here. So Luke says today I saw a late 80s, early 90s two-door Jeep that looked like it had a truck bed on the back. That is the I think it's called the Comanche, if I remember correctly. Yes, they did do a Jeep truck before they did the Gladiator. And I think they were actually fairly popular back in the day too. And I see we also had a bunch more non-members here that stopped by. And again, apologize. We're just keeping these ones a little bit shorter, around an hour. So I'm just going to do the member questions here and then we'll head out. But if you have a question, I'm always happy to answer. You know, if you want to send me a message, an email, save it for the Sunday lives where we got 2 hours. I can usually do those a little bit better there. But final few questions here. Let me see. Where were we here? TFI was responding to Blacked Out 5.0 fan who said he got all straight A's on his recent exams. Also, keyed ignition for the win on the TSX review. I figured you'd appreciate that, Blacked Out fan, and congrats on the great grades there. And yeah, glad you enjoyed the TSX video. Thanks for stopping by. Let me see. Michelle says coworker drives an 05 Accord V6 with 400,000 miles. His dad bought it new and was passed down to his older brother and then to him 4 years ago. He says it's on its last legs, but still keeps going. That's impressive. I'd love to see what the final tally is. Yeah, because I'm curious. That's so fun. And I love when people keep cars super long like that. It's so cool. And he says one issue he has with it is the battery drains on it so much that he has to disconnect it when he parks it so that the car isn't dead. I don't know how that happens. I mean, some of the European stuff does that as well with these phantom battery drains. And I don't know what changes in a car with age and mileage that requires the car to think it needs more electrical current. Unless there's some kind of other thing, I don't know. I'm not really smart when it comes to electrical stuff, but that's strange. But I mean, I had many a dead used car when I used to work at the dealerships that again just had these phantom drains. And it's really strange. And Jordan says he definitely appreciates the reviews of the older vehicles. I think if you mention products and procedures that could make an older vehicle look cleaner would be awesome. Headlight buffs, age trim treatments, etc. Yeah, that is a very popular thing, and it's a smart thing to do for sure. Because if you get that Amazon, all those links, that's a good way to generate some money. And I know product placement is really important, especially these days with YouTube ad rates just sucking so bad. And that was one of the final thing I'll mention on the RAV4 trip I was on this week. I talked to a lot of my other YouTube buddies, and a lot of them are also down with revenue this year. So I'm taking a little bit of comfort knowing it's not just me. Obviously, it's a shame that everyone else is down too, but I think this is why, especially the channels that can pivot to saying, "Hey, look at all these products, buy these products, click on these links." Like it's super annoying, but like a lot of them, it's just like a means of survival because again, you can't just live off ad revenue anymore. You got to either have sponsorships, which is a whole nother job in and of itself, selling yourself, pitching to brands and stuff, or you just do those kinds of links. So I think, I actually was going to do a partnership with a waterless car wash company, and they had a proposal they sent me, and I said, sounds good. love to hear more. And then they ghosted me. So I don't know what was the deal with that, but it was actually like a reputable brand, not some crappy, Chinese garbage. Like it was an actual, well-made thing. And I was excited to try that out. And, try and start incorporating some product stuff there. But I still might do that for some other things. But yeah, I think that'd be an interesting thing to kind of. I just don't want the used car reviews to get too, spammy with like, by the way, here's some products. But if there's a way I can do it where I'm not upset at myself for including stuff, I'm going to try and find a way, because that is a very smart thing, is, trying to get that traffic to the Amazon storefront. I have my Amazon link in the bottom of all my descriptions for people who want to check out my gear that I use. I've had that listed there for years, but that's, very little click through. So, because no one actually goes and looks at the descriptions on videos anymore, but I'm going to try to do some more of that for sure. Jordan, thanks for the suggestion too. And, let me see. Lantern Tail says, our Subaru Ascent selling well? I don't see many on the road. It must just be geographical. I see a bunch around here. I've got, I think, 3, maybe 4 neighbors with Ascents, just in my immediate neighborhood here. They're very popular. This is kind of Subaru country, so if you're not in the Northeast, you might not see as many of them. But especially here, the Northeast, the East Coast, I see a lot at least. I think by the numbers, I haven't looked recently, but they sell pretty well. They're not Grand Highlander, sales or anything like that. But I think last I saw, they did like 70,000 maybe last year, which is respectable. So yeah, not as good as Telluride or Palisade, things like that, but still pretty large seller. But not, I know for Subaru, for sure, Outback and Crosstrek are always like neck and neck for best sellers. Forester's under that, and then Ascent usually comes in somewhere underneath. So, not the hottest thing for Subaru either, but still a good seller. And Vishal says, I get nostalgic in the Mopar section since we had an 05 Chrysler Town & Country as a kid. There's always a bunch of that body style van in the junkyard videos. Yeah, and they're so common, and that's why I really don't highlight them too much. But yeah, there's, they just sold so many of them because they were just dominating back then. And Jordan says, a physical gift. Gotcha. Yeah, there's really no good way to do that. Trying to think other ways. Yeah, send me a message if you want. I'll try and work it out. I have been contemplating doing a PO box for a while for other reasons too. So we'll see. Yeah, I appreciate the offer. That's very kind of you to offer. And yeah, we'll see if we can maybe try and figure something out. And let me see here. So Lantern Tales also says, I have a Tesla, and some of these Tesla drivers don't drive at all. That's for sure. They all think they actually have full self-driving cars. Speaking of, buyers that don't understand their vehicles. But anyway, Chad says, I have an 18-year-old working for me that got an early 2000s truck that he's modifying. I'm trying to keep it in check. Things like only a 2-inch lift, etc. But I honestly love it. So that's awesome. I mean, early 2000s truck, that's all, they're really nice and cheap. I think it was Harrison Auto Sales, the one lot that I often get stuff through. I think they had something come in, like a Ram that's like a 2012, and they're like, 15 or 20 grand, like very reasonable. And I'm glad that at least, those kinds of trucks usually do last a long while, and it's a good way to get an affordable vehicle. So yeah, it's glad someone's getting a cheap truck, because it's like crazy with how car prices have just been soaring. And just this past month, again, new car sales, the average transaction price crossed $50,000 again, with record high repos. It's a real bad storm that's brewing here, because people cannot afford it. But we'll see how long it lasts. Anyway, Michelle says, I feel like the Hurricane Charger might be a domestic BMW in a way, with the inline 6 and rear-wheel drive. Maybe that's a hot take, but I don't know. It might have potential. Yeah, if people are open-minded enough, I think, that's a possibility. But it's still kind of an uphill battle, because, if it's 45 or 50 to start and you add on options, you can get a lightly used CPO M340i BMW for the same money, or even a 540 or something like that, lightly used, because they depreciate so fast. And then you actually have a BMW, which is more of a flex than, a Charger. It's a different kind of buyer, I think, too. I don't think there's a whole lot of crossover between people that look at luxury sports sedans and Charger fans typically. Now, maybe we'll see if they can conquest some new buyers since they've alienated so many of the old ones. But yeah, we'll have to see. That'd be interesting. I mean, I think it does have promise. Just it's heavy, but they've always been heavy, But that's what you do when you add all-wheel drive and turbos. It's all heavy stuff, But yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna keep on thinking about that one. And let me see. Jordan, also thank you for another super chat. Sorry, I missed it. He said, behind you, what's a guess of the measurements of the blue radio, the 2 bottles on the top shelf for the gift incoming? Gotcha. So if you're talking about something to fill that upper shelf, I appreciate that. I'll get a measurement. Yeah, send me a message. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can measure it for you. And yeah, if the gift you're thinking of fits up there, that'd be fun to fill some space in there. So thanks so much. Chad says, thanks for keeping these midweek chats, Matt. Our schedules are crazy, but I look forward to these when they work with our schedule. And sometimes Sunday is hard, but we love this community in the chat. Well, thanks so much for stopping by. And I totally get it. Everyone's got busy lives. And, so that's why it's nice to have this other midweek one, if that works better for some people. Let me see. Vishal also, thanks for being a member for 18 months now. He says, piggybacking on the Nissan, Pathfinder is a nice car now. Nissan is offering 0% APR, 60 months on them too. Great for a new 3-row SUV. Yeah, it seems like it would be good. I've actually never had a chance to review the Pathfinder. They just kind of, I don't know what happened. When it was in the press release, when it was new, I think I might have initially turned it down. And then whenever they've done updates and stuff, like even the Rock Creek version and stuff, I was like, hey, I'm looking for, Pathfinder. And they just never had one in the fleet for some reason. That could be a good one to do, maybe used possibly. But yeah, I mean, I think Pathfinder, it looks nice, has a good interior, and better powertrain than the last version. So it's a car I should probably revisit at some point. Because the last time I did a Pathfinder was the old gen, which was not great. Probably one of the least impressive cars I've ever reviewed, honestly. So the new one seems a lot better. But thanks for letting us know about the great deals there on it too. That's great. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, don't mention products, just procedures to do it. Gotcha. Okay. Well, if you want procedures, I got to give a shout out to my, friend. I'm very thankful to say someone, a buddy for a long time, Chris Fix. Yeah, Chris Fix does the best videos for that kind of stuff. If you want to, know how to clear your headlights, you want to know how to do anything on a car, Chris Fix has been the authority for over a decade, and no one does it better than him. The dedication that he puts into those videos to really make them perfect and so well done. He's just, that's why he's the biggest automotive YouTuber, because he just does it the best. He's a great stand-up guy too, so very easy to support and shout out anytime it's appropriate. So definitely, I also don't know anything about that stuff. I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if I set a procedure to clear headlights, I just tell you to go watch a Chris Fix video. Honestly, that would be, what I would plug in the video instead of trying to explain that stuff myself. Because again, no point in reinventing the wheel. If someone's got the best video out there for something, there's no reason for me to throw my hat in the ring for that, honestly, especially because I don't want to compete with a friend. And not like I'd be competing anyway. He's got millions of videos on this, or millions of views on those videos. But anyway, and Sean says, I had a friend in high school who had a Jeep Comanche. It was a tough little truck we used to throw dirt bikes in the bed and go off-roading. That's awesome. So I'm glad I got it right with a Comanche. Cool. And Jay says, just don't get the 1.5T on the Nissans. Recent recall, since they're known to spontaneously blow up. Fortunately, my brother's is the 2.0 NA, not the 1.5T. Interesting. That 1.5T, I complained about it in the Rogue. It's just a little rough sounding. Now, it was a fine powertrain otherwise, I guess, aside from the recall. But just refinement, that is one area, where it's not as good. Rogue still isn't my favorite in that segment. There's a lot of really good stuff in that segment, but again, it all comes down to the deals. If you get a good deal, absolutely could make sense. And Vince says, time for you to create your own car company. I wish I had, any capability to do that, whether it's time, money, skill. But I would love to consult, and I'd love to be the obnoxious person in the room that says you should do this or you should not do this or whatever. Because I think some of these companies could certainly use an obnoxious idiot to just be like, why are you doing this? Or why are you not doing this? Instead of just the echo chamber that so many of these car companies have, where everyone's giving high fives and no one's wanting to, be the nail that gets hammered and stand out. They just all go along with whatever the upper executives think is a bright idea, and not a great way to make products sometimes. But anyway, Chad says, let me see. He loves that he gets this experience. A reminder that CarMax charges more, but usually leaves their cars unlocked, so you can at least sit and get a feel. Absolutely, always great to. Unfortunately, we don't have any CarMaxes around here. Otherwise, I'd totally, go to some of those to check stuff out. But yeah, it's very true. If you ever want to check something out without having a salesman bothering you as much, and you don't want to wait for your local auto show, definitely it's great that they do that. And so yeah, but thank you all so much for the chat here tonight. We went for almost an hour and a half actually, but hope you all enjoyed it. I apologize again to those of you who weren't able to answer your questions there, the non-members. But again, definitely come back here on Sunday if you can, or send me a message. Always happy to answer. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for a review of the Corolla Cross Hybrid tomorrow, and stay tuned for again all that RAV4 coverage next week on GR Sport, Woodland, and the regular RAV4s, and both plug-in hybrid and regular hybrid. So stay tuned for all that. But anyway, thank you all so much once again for hanging out with me here tonight, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.